p.m. There'll be a strategic and capital planning subcommittee meeting held through remote participation via Zoom. The meeting can be viewed live on Medford Public Schools YouTube channel or via Medford Community Media on your local cable channel, which is Comcast 9, 8, or 22, and Verizon 43, 45, and 47. The meeting will be recorded. Since the meeting will be held remotely, participants may log in by using the link below. The meeting ID is 92978323964. And if you would like to submit questions or comments during the meeting, my correct email address is jennygraham, all one word, at medfordk12.ma.us. And you must submit your first and last name, your Medford Street address, and your question or comment. Okay, I will call the roll. Member Rousseau is absent. Member Reinfeld.
Present.
And Member Graham, present. 2 present, 1 absent, and we'll be along in just a few. Okay, so I put the resolution at the bottom of the agenda just for reference, but I did some thinking, I was doing some thinking about what we sort of said we wanted to talk through and think about. And what I was hoping we could do today is talk a little bit about like, how would we put this into motion? And in my mind, I see this sort of in 2 phases, which I think, we talked a little bit about even in the resolution that was sent to us. So the first phase, I think, is to really think about how to engage the community in some of the conversation around strategic planning. That's never been done in Medford before. So while we have had strategic plans in the past, they never have started with asking the community what the community wants their schools to look like. So to me, that's like phase 1. And then, phase 2 is like, okay, how do we make that happen? Like, what is the action plan that takes us from where we are to where we want to be? So I think like roughly what I was hoping to do today is talk a little bit about particularly that phase 1 and start to think about how we might do that. I did put together a couple of things that we can talk about. One is a survey that could go out via email, and the other is an agenda for a series of focus groups. So we can get to both of those things, but I wanted to pause there and just find out if anybody had anything else they wanted to like immediately add to like the phase 1 public input part of the process.
Those feel like the right places to start. And I would just say there's a transition between 1 and 2, which is to articulate the vision and mission.
Yeah.
Which the action plan leads to that. And I think that's embedded, but I wanted to call it out explicitly.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that when we talk about asking the community, I think one of the things about the last strategic plan is it really largely didn't address the mission statement. And I went to pull it so that I could put it into this document. And I was like, wow, I hate that mission statement just as much now as I ever have, because I don't think it resonates. Like, I don't like in my vision of like what this all looks like when it's done. We as a community need to own the piece that says this is the kind of school system we want to show up for. And then, the superintendent and the team has to be able to say, if you want us to do that, this is how we will do that. And this is how we'll get there. But it should be something that like resonates with people and makes people think like, yeah, I belong here. And I don't think our current mission statement does that at all. A while back when I was like out trolling strategic plans, I happened upon, I think it was Lexington's, and their strategic plan like led with like their revolutionary spirit. And like, it was very Lexington. Like it just like the community jumped off the page at you in terms of like how they perceived their schools. And I don't think it's impossible for us to do the same thing. We've never really asked the community these questions, so that's like the first step. But I do think, sort of focusing some of this public input work on the mission statement, I think could really help frame like where are we trying to go. And I think we have like so many wildly creative people in our community that um, we're not probably going to say it's our revolutionary spirit because that's not who Medford is, but like there's somebody out there with like the clever, catchy way to help people feel like they belong here if we can provide like the right sort of source material, right? So that was like sort of one thing that came to my mind as I was thinking about this phase one is like the output, like I do want the output to be compelling and to make people feel like they want to be part of this district so that when somebody is like looking to buy a house in Medford and they happen upon the website and they read this, they're like, yeah, that's where I want to send my kid. And our current mission statement certainly does not jump off the page like that. So I think there's like, to me, there's a couple of pieces. There's like, what is our mission? And then I think the other part is like, and what would have to happen in the minds of the community for us to say, like, we have arrived at that mission, right? Like, how do we get there? And what are the most pressing things that the community thinks we should be responding to? So those were sort of two things on my mind. The other thing on my mind was like, how do we move quickly through this phase? I think what I feel from the community is like um, people are interested in action and impatient when we're in like the exploratory stages of things, understandably. So how do we like put a sequence of events together and a timeline that then allows us to really come to some of these answers, before too long, and that would line up then to all the other things that this sets off from a strategic planning perspective. Um, One question I did have, though, I think, Superintendent, you did a series of entry sessions when you took over as the superintendent. And I don't think we've heard like what those results were yet. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that process and maybe some of the things you heard. And I don't know if maybe asking you to like put that on the upcoming agenda so that this like these things pair off together makes sense. But I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about that because obviously we don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over.
Right.
But it would be helpful to know sort of what those were because I personally wasn't able to attend any of them. So
No, that absolutely is fair. I actually have it on for the agenda for Monday.
perfect.
Yep, it's coming Monday on the 20th. And absolutely it's overdue. So I had over about 30 listening sessions across the district at each relative school as well as some Zoom sessions. There were survey and input also provided. So I will be kind of detailing some of those broad themes that I heard through all of those sessions. But I also want to be mindful, I think, in this process, one of the things, that you'll see in my presentation is I do kind of have a slide about like what voices are missing. And I
Mhm.
would say that one of the pieces that I really would like to see this process get to is it did not capture all the voices that make up Medford. And so when we get to that phase two, I think it would be really important to have some of these sessions in the community and not at schools. I do want to be mindful of the place in which we're living and that it also may not be comfortable for people to come out at night to places that aren't schools or aren't safe places. But I very much would think that I would like the conversation to also be, are there spaces in um, places of worship or places that families are living common rooms or common areas that we could hold some of these sessions so that we're getting a greater view and a greater voice. Um, I can kind of go through some of the pieces that I will be sharing about on Monday, but to me, I really wanted to kind of target in on like the stakeholders and how we're going to try and get as many voices as we possibly can. And I would say that that also includes students, um, especially our secondary students. I'm sure we haven't really talked about who we would be targeting with the survey. But I think student voice is another one to be captured.
Do you envision Medford community input from people not directly involved in the school system or hypothetically involved in the school system?
I would say, especially right now, since we are in the process, the MSBA process, and building a new high school, and that is an entire community endeavor, especially for our flagship. And the spaces that are encompassed within what those plans look like for the new high school around our early childhood center. We have our pool and our fields. I would say very much that part of that is all woven into the importance of where we stand right now in that process. And that's for the entire community.
Yes, I also think that there's a subset of, I see the non-parent caregivers, but of parent/caregivers who have chosen, for whatever reason, not to send their children to Medford Public Schools. Some of hearing that feedback of what some of them were in Medford Public Schools and now are not, and some of them never were in the district in Medford Public Schools.
Yeah.
To the point of looking to have people who are joining the Medford community broadly see the schools as a place for them.
100%.
Data of any kind about students that are not in MPS? Like, do we have census data about where, um, like, how could we invite students that aren't in our realm or caregivers?
We we do have census data, and we also have data that we have to provide the Department of Education around Medford residents that do not attend Medford Public Schools. And so we do have some data as to where those students are attending in the students attending report.
And do we have contact information for those families, or do we just know where they go to school?
We just know where they go to school, but I think we would need to work with some of our community partners.
And does that usually go well or and cooperatively or not? I I know I've never like tried to do that kind of outreach before, so I just wasn't sure.
I only kind of have the anecdotal when I encounter people.
Yeah, and to be fair and to clarify, for anybody listening, the report, we are not reaching out to families, we're reaching out to the schools and the institutions that the students attend. That's where we're getting the data, so.
And I think it may be part of the non-parent caregivers outreaches. If it's Medford, the Medford community more broadly, I think it might just be messaging of we want to hear from you whether or not you have kids in Medford Public Schools. Also, I think that first bullet point should be community spaces that are not schools. Can just see us looking back at those notes going, what did
Why
we
did we say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, so we do have, I think the question about like making sure all the voices are heard is an important one. And I think we have like our normal ways where we like if we're talking about a survey, right? Like we have our normal ways that we are going to push out a survey, and that's going to generate like a body of response. But I'm wondering if, like, in addition to how we would normally push those things out, like either from the superintendent's office or even from the principals, like, are there other targeted ways that we need to reach families? Is there like messaging that comes from our EL department? Is there messaging that comes from our special ed department? Is there messaging that comes from our athletics department? Like, are there other places that have like lots of touch points with families that we would want to say, like, we need you also to push this out so that we can collect additional information? Um, and do we, at the elementary level, do we like, stuff backpacks with flyers? That doesn't work in middle school or high school, but, I think that's sort of the reach question. I don't know that we've ever really solved, like, how do we get to those families that we don't hear from so much? And I don't know if you have any thoughts or suggestions about that we need to be planning for.
I would jump in and say the community liaisons in City Hall have some connection there. And I know they've been developing partnerships with a couple of the elementary schools with McGlynn and Missatuck.
So I was just going to say that member Reinfeld, they are wonderful. And in addition, I think some of the PTOs, a lot of them have their own newsletters. And so I think if we're including links in multiple, principal newsletters as well as PTO newsletters, and I think we do have platforms, like when I think of talking points, that is very helpful for some families because it's like a direct link. Not every caregiver has email, but they can receive notifications and even the direct links to the surveys and the newsletters via text. So I think using that platform would be helpful as well. And I know Will is here and can probably speak to a lot of the other avenues, but I would say the additional messaging from some of the departments that Ms. McNiff can give for EL and Ms. Bowen can give for special education is helpful. Just any additional layer of context for their families is, I think, helpful. I don't know if you wanted to add anything on, Will, for other avenues that I may not have mentioned.
No, I mean, I just think trying to meet people where they are when we're trying to talk about the big picture about the schools, I think is always a good idea. I think if we kind of do some of the ways we do kind of on a consistent basis, we get a lot of the voices that we maybe either already heard from or we have heard from a lot throughout the last few kind of weeks and months. But finding new ways, whether it's even just putting like a quick QR code up in like a local business and just saying like Medford Public Schools wants to hear from you, tell us your thoughts. And just tapping into the communities like someone mentioned earlier, whether it's the athletics or the arts and just kind of already those built-in spaces that have that consistent dialogue throughout the school year.
Okay. And it's been a while now, but we did some Zoom focused groups. What was that?
I think it was like 21.
COVID?
Yeah, it was like
Well, there
21.
was there were the COVID ones.
Right. And I do remember that we had interpreters join us for those meetings to support families, and we actually did have a number of people join us who were able to like make use of the interpreter services. And to your point about safety, I do think we probably need to think about a multi-prong approach. Like we need to give people the option to come to a Zoom session. And I think we need to give people an option to come, like whether it's one in every school building or in community spaces or on Zoom. Like I think there do need to be like any number of sessions, but I was also sort of thinking about whether like the LPAC meetings and the CPAC meetings, if there is a way to like sort of use one of their standing times where they have sort of the attention of their respective communities to be able to hold and host some in-person sessions as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was able to do that for CPAC, LPAC just in recent months. I think that's a little bit more of a challenge. I can speak with Director McNiff, but I think there's a lot of reservations right now. And so I can touch base with her. And I think what we have just seen in the past couple months is that some direct outreach has been more successful than scheduled meetings.
Okay.
But I think CPAC 100% with their monthly meetings, I don't think that that would be a problem with some pre-planning at all.
I'm also going to put MFN, Medford Family Network, on this list.
Yeah. Hi, member Russo.
Hello, my apologies for being late.
That's okay.
I'm also going to be in the car for the little bit.
Okay. We tried to convince him to just come to our meeting, but he's the chair at the shore, so they needed him more than we needed him.
Duty calls.
Right. Okay. So I, with the help of a friend, did put together some potential questions we might ask in a written survey. I don't know if we want to take a look at that. What I'm sort of envisioning in terms of like the report out of this is to be able to say to the school committee, we want to do a survey and it looks like this, and we want to do these sessions and the sessions look like this, and we're working on the schedule, and we want you to participate with us to help facilitate these things, and we'll show you how to do that, and we'll get the schedule put in place, and then we'll release like a list of opportunities to come join us at these things.
Yeah. And that my question was around, actually, my question was if we need an outside facilitator on any of this.
I think we can script it in a way that we don't. And I actually went back to, I like hopped in my time machine from before I was on the school committee, and we held sessions like this right as I was taking office. It was part of the transition planning from the mayor's office. And we held a session at the McGlynn, and I went and found that report. And at the end of the report, there was like a page about like, here's what people said about the session. And one of the like comments was like, please do more of this. So it was really well received, and I thought people were really excited and energized about it. So I think if we follow that same kind of model, I don't think we have to have an outside facilitator. And I think outside facilitators can be very useful, but I think in the context of like the community telling us like what kind of schools they want to have, like that is a community conversation, and I think we could manage it just fine without that. But
I would say that feedback came up in every single session I had. with staff and caregivers, that they very much like to have a forum of discussion.
Yeah. So do we want to look at the survey first?
Yeah. And I think to be really clear that this is about setting the direction and future looking, because to the, I mean, I think I saw there's a question about what's not working well, and that's really important, but making sure people feel safe in providing criticism. I know sometimes people don't feel comfortable talking to the implementers of things, but I think particularly if we can have paired facilitation.
Right, and I think, when we figure out how these groups get organized, we certainly, we could take the approach that we want, like, just the school committee to participate in the like facilitation role. We could take the approach that we want to just pair, like we want there to be some pairing off of people so that we don't have administrators on their own without somebody from the school committee. And there just may be topics where we say like administrators not on these topics so that people feel like they can speak up. Like I've had people say to me, oh, I wanted to say something about this thing, but I I just can't because I would have to say it to this person and I have too many other things happening with that person right then, right in this moment to like add something to the conversation, with that person. So, we can try to like protect those like more controversial topics as well if we feel like that is necessary once we look at the agenda. Okay, so I will show you, and can you see my screen okay? Paul, I know you can't see it, but
What was the question?
can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, perfect.
And if I don't look at the road, I can read it.
Okay, well,
Don't do that.
don't do that. So I did make a comment because when we did the superintendent search committee,
I remember it vividly.
okay, we did take the time to get the demographic questions right. And it was the source of much discussion.
Yes, I have all that still.
Okay, great. Because I was like, I'm not going to go like that far back in my time machine to try to dig up those documents. But I think there are some demographic questions so that we can say, like, are we there yet? Like, are we getting feedback that is consistent with, who Medford really is? With the superintendent search, the answer was like, no, like not even
It was a
close.
big old no.
Yeah, I saw that data as well. It was not.
Yeah, it was a big old no. Now, I am hopeful that this would maybe be a little different. And many years have passed since that happened. And we do a lot of surveying now. Like we, as a society, we do a lot of that now. And certainly as a district, we do more of that. So at least that can give us directionally, like who are we missing so that we can then do some like successive outreach if we need to, which I expect that we will. Okay.
Yeah. And sorry, Member Graham.
Yeah.
And also like, unlike with the superintendent search where we had like a deadline and an urgency that was immovable, taking the time to find and get community input is something I think we can do here.
Agree. So in addition to the demographic information, question one I asked was, what is your connection to Medford Public Schools? So parent or guardian, student, staff member, community member. And question number two, what school or schools are you affiliated with? So I think we can like add to this list here, but just trying to like orient so that we are particularly hearing from students, community members, et cetera.
I think you have to define. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Never mind. I took a moment to read and I got my answer.
I think community member is too vague. Is this a Medford school community member somehow? Is this a Medford resident?
Yeah, I would change it to just like Medford resident.
You may also want a field for, we may want alumni, alum.
Whatever that plural or singular is.
I use alum because I don't like the gendered Latin, but
What are we missing?
mm, we won't ding you on the formatting. It's Microsoft Word.
I'll fix it, but
Yeah.
I'm like, why does everything move around so badly? Anyway. Okay, and what schools are you affiliated with? We would obviously like have all of our schools listed so that if we're triangulating and we're getting lots of feedback from one school community and not others, like we know how to target.
And we're not, I don't know that, I think we're covered with student outside of MPS. Do we want to know if somebody's at a charter school or a parochial school or a private school or for those non-NPS schools? Is that relevant data?
I think it is.
I think it is. I would just put other in a place for people to write it in instead of us trying to divine that lengthy list.
And to member Reinfeld's point before, you also could have MFN, some affiliation with MFN that's not in our schools yet.
Oh yes, future MPS.
Future.
So the next section, the way I drafted this survey was to like try to warm people up to the questions about the mission statement, because I think if you just like go in cold on a mission statement, it's really hard for people to
Correct.
tell you what they like about it. So I sort of in the reverse of the way I would do it in person, but or like from the top to the bottom, but what are the top 3 priorities you believe the district should focus on over the next 5 years? Some questions about how important different things are to people. And then in section 3, what's working well, what needs improvement, what other thoughts do you want to share? So I'll stop there and ask for any questions, comments, etc.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's out of school time, if that's too broad because it covers athletics and arts, which also happens in the schools, and after school care and how granular, is academic excellence. Do we need to get into literacy and STEM and
Well, my thoughts on that are that, different people will come at these questions from different backgrounds of knowledge. And so, and different points of, what's the word I'm looking for? Different locus of control, not control, but power, whatever the right word is. So, I think that some people might come at it and be like, obviously academic excellence, that's the entire point of school to some people. And we want to allow them to express that. And then other people are going to be from, their own experience of special ed or literacy and are going to be like, this is the thing. And so I think it's going to be hard for us to get the questions so that we don't get such a broad set of answers. I think that's going to be challenging. I think, yeah, in the analysis afterwards, that's going to be a huge lift. But
Yeah, I'm wondering if there is a starting point here of these are the thing. Unfortunately, I don't think we can look at the past strategic plans to say these are the things that have been prioritized in Medford's schools. How important are these things to you and what's missing? But I want some kind of grounding.
The other thing that I went back and forth about when I was trying to pull this together, just so we had something to talk about, was this like rate on a scale of 1 to 5. Like you could just say 5, everything's important, and that actually it tells us something. But would it tell us more if we ask people to like tell us in order of importance how this list
The rank
shakes
rather
out?
than rate.
Yeah.
yeah, or make them pick a top 5 and not pick the rest, because people will, that everybody picking 5 for something, like the problem is that different people will approach that with different methodologies. And I think the results will then be kind of useless in a way. So, here's the 20 options. What are your top 5? Makes them, even if they give, even if they were going to say they're all their number ones, it makes them decide what's the most important for them. And then that in aggregate across the other people filling out the survey will start to have meaning.
I would
And it's a way to tier things to say this is a top priority. This is sorry, Will.
No, I was just gonna say some of the surveys we've done while we've looked to hire new administrators is we've like kind of listed things like this and said select your top 3. And then people can kind of choose more than 3 if they want to, like on a Google form especially. And that was really impactful data that really narrowed, like, as then we would bring the discussions to some of the committee members and be like, this is what the community is kind of prioritizing um, in this process. So that's just something that we found, especially the committees that I served on. It was pretty helpful to at least start the conversation that way.
Okay.
And the question before this is what are your top 3, right? Or maybe that's the second
3,
question.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of this overlaps with the data that I will be presenting on Monday. The only one that really stands out to me as like a continuous theme that's not explicitly called out here is just communication overall. Communication methods.
Okay. Uh, and then this section 4 is sort of my attempt to start to like open people up around the mission statement. I had to like go find it because I was like, nobody's gonna know what it is. So so I put that in here. And the first question is, are you familiar? Do you know about this? Like, was today the first day you learned about our mission statement? Because that says something right there. The next question, do you connect with this mission statement? Does it speak to you in a positive way? In your own words, what does this mission statement mean to you? And the mission statement reflects the kind of school I want to send my children / the children of Medford to. Strongly agree kind of situation. So that was just like me trying to, and then what suggestions do you have for improving or updating the mission statement? So that was sort of my attempt to like pick at like starting to open up like this doesn't resonate with me at all. But maybe that's just me and everyone else is like, Jenny, this is fine, and we don't need to be revolutionary in our spirit or in our mission statement. And if that's the case, then maybe that's the case. But I would just sort of be interested in starting to pick at like how people like react to this as an input to the series of sessions we want to hold.
Yeah. So this feels like slightly too many questions about this statement that we think we're going to be rewriting. I think interrogating it is a good thing, but I'm wondering if it's similar to the last bit. What about this statement resonates with you? Where is it lacking?
I know you're not asking me, but the 21st century education thing has got to go.
And this mission state, I do like that reflects the kind of school I want to send. It could also be this strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. And oh, I lost that. I lost the follow on to that. Send my children to. I have to come back to that. Sorry, someone else was talking, so go ahead.
So I was thinking like maybe we could remove this question, this current number 10. So what does this mission statement mean to you? Like, and just say like, do you know about it? Does this speak to you in a positive way? And maybe we don't need that question. This mission statement reflects the kind of school I want to send my children to, and what suggestions do you have? Like, it could be just that simple. Where's the cell fit on my page?
Do we care if people are familiar with this statement? I mean, that speaks to how well we've communicated it out or not. I'm not sure. That feels like a looking back question. Or maybe can you tell me more about why that was important to ask?
I guess for me, like, you don't want to assume that, like, maybe it's just like, no, I've never heard of this, but it sounds good. I like it. Even the 21st century part, right? Like, versus, oh yeah, I see that on the walls of the high school and I roll my eyes every time. Like, those are two different like ways to like come at like familiarity, right? Like, so I think it's just, and it's a yet like yes, no, try to keep some of those questions super simple. So it's like, don't overthink it. Either you do or you don't. And then like move along. So that was my thinking when I put it together, but to other suggestions.
The only thing I wonder about is maybe like the format of it too. Are you familiar? Read through the whole thing, yes, no. I think some of that you're going to probably capture in 9, like in the following question. I do think that the most, like, just the data that is going to be really important, that's going to drive a lot of the work ahead, would be what is now on this as 9, 11, and 12. And I'm really hoping we get people to fill in 12.
Yeah. Well, we could say something like we are considering. And then you could just, that could be just like a statement that leads into these 3 questions.
I think that's a bit cleaner.
But something like suggested themes or items instead of suggestions, or because that could give them a little, instead of them trying to write a new mission with their, ideas or adjustments or something like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Is the question for improving, or is the question to say what would make you agree more strongly in question 11? Is it to say what would you change about this mission statement for it to,
Yeah. What additional
I agree with
elements
you.
would make you feel more positive or something like that? Yeah.
well, not even just, I'm not looking for additions. I also want, I want to
Yeah.
hear from the Pauls who say 21st century feels outdated.
Yeah.
That I don't.
Is
Yeah.
I think we can tweak the wording a little bit, but
Mhm.
Like that.
and please don't forget to hit save. I don't know if you've done that or not.
It would be
No, I
going
think
back
I'm,
to transcript.
I think I'm on autosave, so
Okay,
I'm
just
good.
we've all been burned.
Um, so I can clean this up and ask Member Rousseau to add the demographic questions and would be happy to collect any other input once you see the cleaned up version, and then we can plan to share it on the agenda for the committee to provide their input to on Monday.
Yeah, I think question 4 is going to need some cleaning up. I think
Yeah.
we need to find the right balance between laundry list and hitting all the
Vertical
right.
categories. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take a crack at it and let you know.
And I can think, although I guess open meeting law, we can't both.
Is there anything that you're thinking about right now?
On for this list.
Mm. Yeah.
What about belonging? Or some way to say that?
I love that.
There's some signs around that have something to do with that. Um, is safety on there?
Not explicitly. Facilities and infrastructure are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I-
safety is both physical safety and
Correct.
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah, it's a hard one because what do we mean? How do we interpret it?
Where does this particular data go? What's going to happen with the feedback to this question? Is this where our pillars and values come? Is this where our priorities come out? Where are we trying to go with this question?
think for me, it's like, it's an input potentially to some of the like in-person sessions just to like aid in our preparation, but also like not everybody's going to take the time to come to something in person. And I want to give people the space to say, I'm not going to come to anything because I can't, or I won't, or I don't want to, or I'm not comfortable. But I do want to tell you that the like single most important thing to me is this. And um, these things matter to me. I am paying attention even if I can't be physically present. So it's sort of a way to give people a little bit of an opening to participate in this process.
Mhm.
So the person I was just giving a ride home to from my shore meeting actually was a researcher in surveys and stuff, and she's not in the car anymore. But she did mention that having, whether it's gift cards or Medford swag, drawings, and then publicizing that each time we to Sarah S from West Medford won this for filling out this survey, um, that those things can drive uh, responses quite heavily, even though it won't cost much. So that's just, I think, I know like with the superintendent search, I think we didn't do that. And I think we relied heavily on, I don't want to say guilt, but frankly, that's, one interpretation of the, do you feel responsible to having input to this? Uh, and I worry about, and I think the results there kind of highlighted the inequitable use of that approach. So just a thought that I thought I should transmit, because I don't know how much Medford swag would cost, how many drawings we would do, but I think that if we could uh, do something like that, that kind of is a hook to get people to fill it out, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I was going to mention that that's what we do in surveys, kind of across.
She also
And that
mentioned
should be
something
easy
else
enough
that,
to do, I would
yeah,
think.
she mentioned something else that actually I didn't understand until just the second, about, getting people to fill it out early means they'll be in that drawing longer and have a better chance of winning. So,
Yep.
so that's just, I was a little confused when she said that, but now I understand.
Every week we'll have 5 lucky winners, so register early for more chances to win. Okay, any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, so the thing that we haven't talked about yet that came up in the resolution to prompt this meeting is questions around the district leadership, to provide that basis for appointments, and the mandate for the person in the superintendent role to really feel guided by the community and supported by the community in that. So I'm not sure if that's coming up or if that's part of, but we have tied this opportunity as a chance for the community to weigh in both on what the mission and milestones are for the district, but also for what they're looking for in district leadership.
So I think we would want to provide some context for the
Yes.
survey, right? Include the presentation from the superintendent that she's going to share with us on Monday.
And I will just note as you're typing that, right? Some of this behind the resolution is in speaking with the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and talking about what happens when appointments happen very quickly, as they did in this case, and being able to ground the work in a community process. And that this is often a good opportunity for the district to articulate values, which in our conversation, my conversation with our Mass representative was saying, she said to me, well, when was the last time the community weighed in on this? And I said, well, it's long overdue. And so being able to articulate that. And I will acknowledge the awkwardness of this conversation, given who is in the room right now, but I think it's really important to note that this is a bigger process.
And quite fair.
Erica, do you have thoughts on what those questions might be?
So what I'm trying to do is not, I want it to be forward looking and not necessarily what has worked and not worked in the past with leadership. And so I think some of it is similar to what we've done in our hiring of other leadership roles of, right, what are the things that are most important. The core, if we as a district have these core values, this is what that looks like in practice. This is how I feel supported as a staff member. This is how I feel supported as a family. I think it's a little bit challenging because many people don't fully understand what the what the role is. But I think I do want to know. The most upfront question is, what are you looking for in a leadership? Possibly these are the qualities that are most important to me.
Can I jump in?
Please.
So I really appreciate you got to where you did on this, because I was going to jump in and say, but most people don't know what these jobs are. Even if we were to give the job description, they really don't know what they are. And one of the things that I am always uncomfortable with is it'd be like saying the teachers are the only ones who can hire the directors that they will report to, or the principals they report to, or the only people who can hire the superintendent are the people who work for the superintendent. And because they're the only ones who will actually know what that person does day to day for real, or what they want them to do. And it's a lot like, what do you want in your primary care doctor versus what do you want in your surgeon? And I want my primary care doctor to have exceptional bedside manners and to be compassionate. Mm-hmm. And I don't care if my surgeon is a psychopath. Are they a good surgeon? Is the only qualification. So I think that's what makes me nervous about asking people, what do you want in this leader of this particular kind, considering the vast majority of the people of Medford will not be educators themselves. Mm-hmm. I think the educators answering this question will have a very good and interesting set of answers, which I think are very worthy of culling and separating and being like, okay, this is what we're hearing from the educators. And I
Yeah.
think that is super meaningful. And I think the non-educators, I'm not saying their opinion won't matter, but I think it has a different, I don't want to say weighting, a different value, not more or less, just a different value. And, this is one of those things. It's like the surgeon versus the primary care doctor, like people might say they want to have a friendly surgeon, but it turns out they don't. Um, so this is really a really hard area to nail down because also like people's experiences with district leadership, whether as students or parents or employees in other places or with previous superintendents will have a big effect, I think, on what they want. When we had the gun clip thing, I remember Glenn Kuchar said a third of the people are there for the reason that you're holding this event. A third are there to air grievances that may have nothing to do with anybody even in the room. And I don't want to repeat what he said the other third were for. But, I don't, our current superintendent, a future superintendent, like they're not the superintendents that the kids who have kids, the people who have kids in Medford now experienced. And so it's just very, very challenging for me to understand what we get in that regard. That's useful because this is going to be a lot of data to not data. It's going to be qualitative stuff that has to be mulled over and understood and interpreted.
I just pulled some questions with the help of Copilot, and I have no pride of authorship of any of these questions. But now we have something to react to. So curious what you think about these.
And I was pulling up the last set of questions, which, it was significant or current issues, which is actually what this is asking here.
I feel a little on the fence about this question. Not sure I want
I
a
don't
bad answer to this question to begin either.
I don't know. I just think it's important, and the Medford community is the Medford community, and
Yeah, exactly.
we want someone who can work with the Medford community like that. Mhm.
About this member so. Do you need
Sorry,
us to read you the questions?
no, I'm just sitting down in my home office.
Oh.
So I don't have a chance to see it yet, but give me a moment.
Okay.
I'm looking at at the last superintendent search. There's a question: what are the strengths of the district that you want to see continued by the new superintendent? I think that's a really strong question that taps into both of these points and potentially what are the areas that you feel that the new superintendent most needs to address, although I think you've and what are the most urgent areas for improvement? Maybe there might be a better phrasing than that, but it's kind of a different version of what's most important to you.
I feel like this question is maybe a little too in the weeds, personally. Like, it's fine. It's sort of innocuous, but I don't think it tells us
Yeah.
so much. Do you
I
all
think
agree with
to Dr. Galusi's point about communication being important,
Good point.
I
We
think this
should leave it
isn't
there.
quite the question, but I think it's a good point that
I mean, it's a select
I-
all that apply, so
I would agree. That was the feedback. I think I do, just from the pieces that I heard, people like to have that the options of the follow-up even to the regular correspondence via email. People really liked having the forum to be able to have discussion. So I think it's important for data.
yeah, well, oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah.
What was your question you had for me, Jenny?
do you have any thoughts about these questions?
No, I mean, question above the current question one, I thought resolved my concern that nobody knew what the superintendent did. Because I think that it's not open-ended, so I like that.
Okay.
And I would swap your second two and I would put strengths and urgent areas back to back and put the communication after. To the point, is there a specific question for educators? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a branching survey, but if you are an MPS educator, because I do agree that's feedback that's really important.
Well, I would expect that they would answer these two questions.
And then at the top, though, we're identifying what role they are when they're completing this
Yeah.
survey.
Yeah. And we said student, staff member, Medford resident, MPS alum. There questions about that? So for the focus groups,
Sorry, just one more. I know, Member Russo, you're gonna go back, you're gonna pull the demographics. Is that this question of the graduate of Medford Public Schools, parent guardian at this school, that school, all the other schools? English. We also have had questions about parent guardian of a child in the English language learners receiving 504 accommodations.
Yeah, all of those.
All of those are the demographics we're talking about, not the, oh, you're muted.
Well, can't you read lips? Just kidding. I'm looking at them right now. And no, we don't ask those questions in the demographics.
Okay, I'm looking at the superintendent search demographics, and it includes things like parent or guardian of a child receiving special education supports and services 504,
Okay.
participating in athletic. Yeah, there's a whole this question 6.
Question
From-
6
I
is
want to say it's from Survey Monkey.
okay, question 6 I have is your combined household income.
Okay. I can send you this
Can
as
you
well.
just send those to me and I will include them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's got education professional, educator in Medford Public Schools, Medford residents with no children in Medford. Anyway,
Yeah, if you send those to me, I can add those in.
okay.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at just the straight like demographics like the federal government would have.
Yeah, and then I
Although
have
We do
have
have
this.
what neighborhood?
Yeah.
I am less concerned about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have there are a bunch of demographics. Language you speak at home, how many children. I'm not sure we need quite this level of detail. But oh yeah, there's neighborhood.
Yeah, these were based off of I think we should keep this because then we can use them to compare across other surveys we do.
Yeah.
And these are best practice, at least at the time of writing this, which, yeah.
Yeah, this is from 2018.
Yeah.
All right, I will send that after this meeting. Let's keep moving.
Okay. Okay. So I also put together an agenda. It's a 2-hour session. And I can sort of walk you through it at a high level. So we don't have to like wordsmith every like little piece of this, but essentially, we would welcome people and we would use, we would kick it off and give some framing, right? Like this is part of a multi-phase process. We want to focus first on what we want our district to look like and what our goals are. And then we'll, talk about, how we will like make progress towards those goals. We'll introduce the facilitation team, whoever that is. And we'll spend some time talking about the mission statement. So we'll talk about like, here's the mission statement. Tell us what you think about it. Like, what are your reactions to the mission statement? And we will ask people to like write down their thoughts on stickies, and we'll have people in groups. They'll write down their thoughts and we'll like organize like, what are the positive thoughts? What are the negative thoughts? And then we will have people work in small groups to say, like, go ahead and discuss and like, tell us what a compelling mission statement would sound like to you. So we start to generate some like creativity and some ideas and that kind of thing.
And distinguishing between mission statement and vision statement, I just do notice that a lot of the other district strategic plans kind of have both. I think the vision comes out of the conversation and the mission is more of a respond to, but
yeah. I think those are like, I always find it hard to keep people in one bucket or the other. And I think the answer is like both of those things are going to happen at the same time, and that's okay. Like you can sort of collect all that information and then be like, okay, now like what part of this is the mission, what part of this is the vision. But being like sort of pressed for time, like you would have to sort of have the time to step people through like what goes where if you wanted to like get to that level of detail, which I felt like we're like it's pretty packed as it is with 2 hours. So okay. So then we'll switch gears and we'll ask everybody to take a few minutes and to think about like what are 5 things we would need to do well in order to realize the mission statements that we were just talking about and working on together. Everyone will write them down and then we will on their sticky notes, and then they will come up to like a big whiteboard essentially and put up their sticky notes. And then we will ask the whole group, maybe there's 2 groups depending on how many people are in the room, but then we'll ask the whole group to work together quietly, silently, to categorize the sticky notes, which is a process where everyone is at the board, everyone is moving things around, everyone is saying like this goes here, but we're doing it quietly so that people are having to like really engage with the process instead of like getting sort of distracted in the chatter. We'll ask people to like step back and take a look at it, right? See everything that's there. We'll facilitate like a walkthrough of that information and we'll give everyone a break. And then what we'll do during the break is we'll set up these groupings in different areas around the room. So if there is a grouping that is like after school, we'll take all of the after school stickies and off they will go to the after school sticky group. And when people come back from break, we'll ask them to like pick a spot to go sort of check in on and work with. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into that topic around like, what is it that, what don't they see that maybe they were surprised they didn't see? What surprised them about what they see, and ask each group to give us a little bit more input on like why this thing is so important to them. Like, why did they, if they're at the after school like board, why are they there? Like, what is it that has to work for them in order for them to feel like we're achieving the mission statements that we were talking about, whatever that ultimately becomes, and specifically about after school, so that there's like some richer data there than just like a bunch of sticky notes about things that people wish we could do and don't do. And then that's the end. So 2 hours, everyone, and we're done and everyone goes home. The idea then would be like hosting several of these sessions around the community and being able to like aggregate all of that information, and potentially like ask some of the like most engaged people to work with us to help us author like this setup to the strategic plan around what is our mission statement, and how do we start to clearly talk about that and bring that back forward to the community. So that's the premise, is that this is like a collection of an input collection opportunity for the community to be part of this process. And then once we get through this, we get to phase 2. Now we're talking about, okay, like how would we do this? Like if this is where we want to go and these are the priorities, what is the actual plan that would take us from where we are to this place that we've described? And that's the work that comes in, that is like less about the community telling us how to do that, and more about the superintendent telling us how to do that. So we as the community are clearly saying, here are our priorities and here are our goals. And now, superintendent, you tell us like, how are we going to make that happen? And what do we need to do to line up to that vision? So that's the idea.
Can you scroll up a little bit to I guess it's the sorting. This is a very awkward place for the need to do well. Because a piece that I had been thinking about of to say, if this is our vision, if these are our values and our priorities, what does that look like? Paint a picture for me of what that looks like.
Mhm.
I think that's a slightly different approach than what's described here. Got a mission statement. We need to do these things well. I think my concern is I'm not sure, depending on the group that this is, they may or may not know what it is that needs to be done to get there. I'm wondering if it's jumping a little bit too far into, well, what does a school district do? What does the administration do? Or maybe that's just the phrase, maybe that's a different way of phrasing what I'm saying of what does this look like in your daily life? And actually, let me step back a bit and ask, are these do we envision these focus groups as being demographic specific, that we've got all educators in the room doing this, or is it going to be a mix of caregivers and educators, recognizing, of course, that some of our educators are also Medford caregivers, but are the focus groups focused around who's in the room as well?
I think they I think they could be organized like in subsections, like if there's a focus group that we see like lots of educators at, like we could group people, right? Like we could group educators and caregivers separately. Some of that, like really, you sort of have to respond in the moment to who shows up.
Yeah.
To say like, okay, this is how we're gonna like deal with the crowd that we have. And some, if it's a like a big session where you have lots of input, it does make sense to sort of like group people. But you may have a really small session where everybody working together is like has its own value, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking academic excellence maybe looks different to someone who's in the classroom every day than it does to
Mhm.
the parent.
I would say to inform this work, we would need a cross section of
Yeah.
stakeholder involvement here. And depending on, to Member Graham's point, like who's showing up, I think there are other opportunities that we are going to be capturing voice, because I also think students have a stake in this as well. And I thought I remembered earlier on there being a line about examples too. Like, was there's something in here that stated about examples from other districts?
Yes. Where did I put that?
Just to your point, Member Graham, I think depending on where people are coming from, an exemplar is always, excuse me, good to have on hand.
It's right here. When
There we go.
people break into their groups. Oops, sorry. When
Yep.
people break into their groups.
I mean, I think it would be ideal if we had different groupings, but I think the challenge is the timing, who's available when is just not gonna, we'd have to have so many more sessions if we had an educator's set of times and a parent caregiver set of times, and it's just, I think we will have to discuss how we're going to handle non-English speakers. We want to make sure that they get support, but we can't have an army of interpreters there in case somebody shows up, because that's going to be very expensive. So,
Well,
Yeah.
that's an accommodation question. That is, and yes, people are welcome to drop in, but if there's anything we can do to make this session more accessible, whether
Yeah.
it's gluten-free food or
yeah,
language translation or
100%. And I also think that where we're going to have this in-person session matters. And I think Member Graham, I don't know, you had mentioned Zoom, but I think that a Zoom option might be beneficial and for some of this work. And I think we can talk about, we've done it a couple ways in terms of having people here for interpretation live and in the moment, and also in like separate breakout groups where the whole thing can just be in their native language. So I think I would like to make sure that I'm having those conversations with Miss McNiff and our community liaisons to see what what the best approach would be to gather that input.
Yeah, and I do think this isn't just one session. I think this is several sessions, right? Like how we do this, like, you know, some people are like, have this stuff on the weekend because that's when I can go. And other people are like, do not have this stuff on the weekend because that is when I cannot go, right? And everything in between. Like it's, you know, it's sort of a challenge. So I was thinking we would want to have like 5 or 6 sessions. I don't know how that number feels to all of you. But I
I mean, I, it seems small to me, that number.
mhm.
I know it's a lot of work. But I don't know. I mean, maybe we do 5 or 6 to start, and then like at 3 we get together and decide, do we need to add more? I don't know. I mean,
Eh.
we also have to acknowledge that like if we get excellent participation, we're going to need the analysis is going to be a massive task.
Our AI policy allows us to expedite that work.
That's a good point.
There's, I think there's one of the things we also find in surveys is you do hit a point when you start getting the same answers over and over. And I don't know how many sessions of this it takes to get there. I'm not sure 5 and 6 is too few. I think we may see similar pieces. I also think that maybe the Zoom focus groups, if this is very sticky note, and I love sticky notes, if this is very sticky note based, the Zoom sessions might be about just going deeper into specific priorities that came out of the larger survey or that came out of these sessions, is to say everyone said this is important, but they didn't want to work on it. And so that's where we're going to have a conversation about this topic that came up that needs more fleshing out. So I think the Zoom sessions are potentially different than this, that they're about say more than was on the survey. This is your chance to go deep and engage with other people and have a conversation and hear what it means to them, and does that change how you see this priority?
I would just respectfully ask for for at least a small number to be just Zoom, because I think I really want very much to try to capture as many voices as we can. And I do think we have, in light of the current context, some people that may not feel comfortable participating if these sessions are in the evening. And I think Zoom is an option that I'm hoping we can get some voices to participate if they're able to do it from home.
I also think, and I don't, forgive me if I missed this because in my transition out of the car, but it would be helpful to get the demographic survey results for folks at these as well. Because Erica's point about, we start getting the same results is important, but if we're getting the same results and it's because we're getting the same people, demographically the same people, that doesn't mean it's time to stop.
That means it's time to shift and
right.
talk
Right.
to different people.
But
Absolutely.
but don't keep having the same conversations. I agree that that's, there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
Yeah. So to your point, I think this is a useful framework, and who engages with it will inform what happens next. And because this is leading is that synthesis transition between what you initially described as stage 1 of engaging the community and phase 2 of creating an action plan. That synthesis comes out of this, it comes out of the survey, and it comes out of the Zoom focus groups that won't have, I mean, I guess there's Jam boards, and educators can tell us all about how to engage people on Zoom in this interactive way. But I think also technology challenges can be a barrier as well.
yeah, for sure.
So if a focus
Um,
group is about the conversation and the either the targeted questions or the tell me more that you couldn't put in writing, that's an important component. This what you've described here is the doing the work. And I think I just want to make sure the Zoom component as well is about hearing more voices. There's hearing what people have to say, and there's doing the work of turning it into that mission, that vision, that action.
Yeah. And I think what I'm envisioning is that we would hold these sessions and then we would have another subcommittee to like get that parsed and into some sort of a working draft that could then go back to the school committee.
Mm-hmm. So is that a natural transition to start talking about timing?
Yes. I will also say that we'll have more information coming soon about the timeline for community sessions around the high school project. But I think the January deliverable is primarily about work that is happening inside the district with the ed plan. So I'm not anticipating tons of community oriented meetings between now and the end of January, although I could be wrong about
on the
that
high school project.
for the high school. And I do think timing wise, trying to collect this input and feedback between now and the end of January is the right timing if what we're endeavoring to do is like have a productive conversation in the lead into decisions about a permanent superintendent on July 1, and a strategic plan that doesn't take another 5 years to build.
I would anticipate you're going to have visioning sessions for the project in the next few months.
For the community?
Yeah, community, stakeholders, parents.
Okay.
They'll have some sort of a vision. I mean, this is how the other projects I've been on run. They'll have visioning sessions where they grab a bunch of people together and a couple sessions, and they will show you different designs, different things, and you kind of put your post-it note or your color stickers on what you like and gather information and stuff like that.
I had thought that ran kind of parallel with feasibility studies. Am I
Yeah,
wrong
that's what
it does. Yeah.
Okay, which
I mean,
I think was starting in January is certainly the timeline that was presented to us.
Well, there's two deliverables that are part of the feasibility study. One is the plan, and the other is I'm going to get it wrong, preferred schematic design. So the plan is like, what are we going to do in the building? That is due in January.
Ah,
What do we prefer the building to look like in order to do that is, I think, June. So,
okay, so that visioning does sound important for community input.
so
Because
there will be some, we
I'm
can get
also
some more
really
information.
concerned here about people's fatigue in providing input as much as everyone wants to.
Yeah,
It
It-
could,
yeah.
it could come early or later in the feasibility study process. Depends on how they run it.
Mhm.
Could strictly focus on, because we have to do a lot of work on the number of spaces and the size and
Yeah.
square footage and all that kind of stuff. And then building placements and, differentiating between, renovation and new building and repair only options and stuff like that. And then they may flip the design. I've seen it done the other way. They do it first, but it's going to be interesting where the architect is just coming on board and we're kind of already moving forward, see how they
Yeah.
structure it.
We have a meeting with the architects later this week, and we could certainly ask the OPM this question. So by Monday, I can have some answers about like what we anticipate that looking like.
Yep.
Yeah, we wanna, the fatigue thing is
It's real.
Yep.
oh,
But I don't want that to be an excuse for not engaging people and have people say, but I wasn't, I didn't have a chance to weigh in on the high school and on the strategic plan. And
Yeah, it's just a matter of scheduling it.
yeah, so everyone's favorite thing is scheduling.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And that actually raises one point that also came up in the resolution is how things like the educational vision and the instructional vision, this work that has been done that feeds into strategic planning, how this comes into community input. I think, if you have a focus group around, if we say, oh yes, academic excellence is the priority, well, how does the instructional vision align? The process for bringing those pieces that already exist, right? We're doing some focus work around this mission statement that exists that we know needs to be updated. But what about these other pieces that exist, right? There's a capital planning conversation around the facilities and infrastructure. There's,
Yep.
and maybe that's a little more phase 2 than
Yeah.
phase 1, but I
I
do
think
want
it
to
is.
acknowledge that those pieces exist and there has been some work done there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and I do think that part does start to like those puzzle pieces start to come together in phase 2. And I think frankly, like wherever we like leave a draft of the mission statement, like I think even that is going to be continuously like fine-tuned while the strategic plan is created. Like I don't think that we should expect that there's like not any change that happens there. I think that will certainly be tweaked and adjusted as we go, but we want to have enough of an anchor that it can guide instead of like follow.
Yes. All right,
So.
so I just moved us away and now I'll move us back to the scheduling. So it sounds like we need some more input. We need to know what the high school community
Yeah.
input schedule it looks like in order to.
Yeah. And I think we can,
And
I will,
sorry, I would just say in that meeting, can you ask what the flexibility is? Because I would love to know if they say, oh no, we want to do it this way, but if we did it this other way, this is what it would look like. If we say, well, we need to do this community input first, is that even an option?
yeah, we can find out.
Thank you.
And then I can look at the calendar and maybe like try to propose some dates for the school committee to think about. And then we would have to like think about locations and things like that. But with the holidays coming up, it is like a little bit sticky, maybe a lot sticky.
And of course, I will note that there's also a question of whether the composition of the school committee stays the same or not, which can
Yeah.
influence.
Mhm. That is true. So I don't think we can, I think we just have to move forward.
Yeah.
But yeah. It could change, I don't know,
So we're reporting out on this
Monday.
Monday. I don't think we have motions to,
I think we need a motion that I will like get this cleaned up and prepared for Monday.
So
With-
moved.
and
Yeah.
second.
Grant will clean this up and get it ready for our presentation on Monday to the school committee.
And seconded by member Reinfeld. We'll call the roll. Member Rousseau,
Yes.
member Reinfeld,
Yes.
member Graham. Yes. So I will clean it up and get it ready for Thursday.
Thank you for all the work. Sorry I wasn't here early.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, my sister's dog came in and she's sniffing furiously behind me and making a lot of noise. So it's very distracting. Um,
Are we at
okay,
motion to
15 minutes early.
adjourn 15 minutes early?
Okay.
Motion adjourned by member Reinfeld, seconded by member Rousseau. Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
member Rousseau, and member Graham. Yes. 3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion